Hidden movie details you completely missed, Part 2. In the movie The Dark Knight, Joker is constantly licking his lips like he does right here. But the only reason he does this is because the prosthetic scars Heath Ledger wore kept falling off, so he would lick his lips to keep them in place. And it eventually became part of the Joker's character. In the movie Joker, every clock in the whole movie is set to 11:11 and never changes. This was done intentionally by the director to show that everything in the movie might not actually be happening and may just be a figment of Arthur's imagination. Speaking of the Joker, you can now try to survive a zombie apocalypse with him in the mobile game State of Survival. It's a super fun game where you can build post-apocalyptic shelters, kill zombies with your friends, and now you can even play with the Joker. If you think you can survive, click the link in my bio.
The Dumbest Lottery Winners, Part 3. Evelyn Adams won the lottery and then won again 4 months later for a total amount of $5.4 million. But she thought she could keep on winning, so every night she would go to casinos and gamble her lottery winnings. She eventually gambled all her money away and now lives in a trailer park and works for a food services company. Martin Todd bought a lotto ticket in 2000 but forgot about it until months later when he saw the lottery drawing on TV. Martin realized that the winning numbers were the numbers he bought, but he couldn't find the ticket anywhere. And since he failed to file a lost ticket claim within 30 days of his purchase, he ended up getting nothing. Etta Mae was so shocked when she won the California lottery that she couldn't stop shaking when she went to claim her prize. So she asked her son Ronnie to sign the ticket and claim the jackpot on her behalf. But greed got the better of Ronnie as he claimed the jackpot as his own and spent all the money on himself. Genius People Who Beat the System, Part 6. First, this TikToker lives in LA and there was a movie being shot right by his house, so he decided to sneak onto the set. He made his way right in and explored the set before stopping to get tons of amazing free food. Next, a kid was playing GTA 5 when he decided he wanted to take a nice relaxing bath. But he still wanted to continue playing, so he FaceTimed his PlayStation so he could still play while in the bath. Next, a man from China bought a first-class plane ticket which came with access to a VIP lounge that had free food. He rescheduled his flight over 300 times in a year so he could enjoy over 300 free meals. After finally getting caught, he canceled his ticket and still got a full refund. Next, a girl woke up and decided she really didn't want to go to work. So she turned on her flat iron to high heat and put a thermometer up to it and sent her boss this text to avoid having to go to work. Welcome to ridiculous things going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about, Part 32. First, Elon Musk is going to be making a Tesla phone called the Model Pi. Since Elon also owns Starlink, the phone will use its satellites and have service anywhere on Earth and anywhere on Mars when people live there. It'll be able to mine cryptocurrencies, it'll have solar charging so you can charge it anywhere, it can change colors on its own, and so much more. Next, German inventor Rebecca Weiss created a testicle bath that's actually a male birth control device. The invention uses ultrasound technology to temporarily stop sperm mobility, and the device only needs to be used once every few months to prevent pregnancy. Next, two inventors from Kenya created the world's first biorobotic arm that's operated by brain signals. It was invented to help disabled people do everyday tasks by only using their brain. A student in North Korea was caught smuggling copies of the show Squid Game into the country, and his punishment will shock you. The student is believed to have smuggled a copy of the show from China on a concealed USB drive. After the student smuggled the show into the country, he sold a copy to another student who then shared it with his 6 friends. The student that originally smuggled it into the country is due to be executed by a firing squad. And the student that bought a copy of the show has been sentenced to life in prison, while his 6 friends who only watched the show have been sentenced to 5 years in labor camps. Plus, teachers and administrators working at the school where the students watched the show have also been fired, and they face being banished to remote parts of the country to work in mines. Genius People Who Beat the System, Part 5. A girl's phone was about to die, so she yelled to her mom who was upstairs to bring her down a charger. But her mom didn't want to get up, so she simply tied the charger around the dog who was upstairs with her and told her daughter to call him down. This Twitter user and her partner faked a proposal so they could get a free dessert at a restaurant, and it completely worked. Kimberly Oakley left a note on her son Jason's recently washed shirt asking, "Can you hang this out please?" But the note didn't specify what this referred to, so he took her words seriously and literally hung out the note and sent her this picture. Kayla Smith spotted her stolen bike for sale online. She called the police, but they told her they couldn't handle her case that day. So she called the thief and said she was interested in buying the bike. They met at McDonald's and she immediately knew it was hers, so she asked to try it out and he agreed and she never came back. Genius people who beat the system, part 4. This student was only allowed to have a 1-page cheat sheet, so they wrote a whole page of notes in blue pen and another page in red pen. They then brought 3D glasses to class, so when they look through the blue side they can see the red pen, and when they look through the red side they can see the blue pen. A couple's landlord said that they couldn't paint the walls in their apartment, so they got hundreds of paint strips and covered the walls with them. A teacher wouldn't allow students to eat in class, so a kid filled his empty lip balm with cheese so he could sneak it in. This kid was asked to name the country that owns Greenland. Hint, it's not Greenland. So he answered not Greenland and the teacher actually marked it right. This kid's mom told him that food wasn't allowed in the living room and his tablet wasn't allowed in the kitchen, so it's safe to say that he beat the system. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, part 5. First, police forces in Dubai have officially adopted real hover bikes that have 4 propellers and can fly up to 40 miles per hour. It helps the police get around congested cities easier and they're able to get to people in need quicker than ever before. Next, Abu Dhabi International Airport has sleeping pods that are soundproof so you can take a nap in privacy while waiting for your flight. It also has power sockets, Wi-Fi, and secure luggage storage and only costs $12 an hour to use it. Next, the Rover Speed is a smart suitcase that uses cameras, radar, and AI to follow you so you don't have to hold the handle. It matches your walk speed, avoids obstacles, and you can even charge your other devices off of it. Next, many different stores such as Sephora have implemented 2 different sets of shopping baskets. One is for those that need help shopping and another is for those who want to be left alone. Welcome to ridiculous things going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about, part 31. First, scientists have discovered that the Earth has a second moon, but it won't stay around forever. The second moon is actually a fragment of our regular moon that was created by a meteor collision. The second moon will orbit Earth for 300 years before it breaks its orbit and journeys out into space. Next, Russia just shot down their own satellite, which has put the lives of the astronauts aboard the ISS at risk. The explosion of the satellite caused at least 1,500 pieces of debris to create a dangerous debris cloud. And the ISS passes through this cloud every 90 minutes, and if any of this debris were to hit the station, it could leave it uninhabitable. Welcome to ridiculous things going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about, part 30. First, a company named Xpeng recently revealed their completely electric flying car that they will start producing in 2024. It will have autopilot and the flying mode can carry 2 passengers at 80 miles per hour for 35 minutes. It will also have a parachute system, thunderstorm protection, and it will only cost $157,000. Next, an asteroid the size of the Eiffel Tower that's traveling 15,000 miles per hour will hurtle right by Earth in December. NASA has deemed it as potentially hazardous because it crosses Earth's orbit. And what's even crazier is that it will pass by Earth again in 2060. Next, the internet is going crazy over this 10-year-old girl because she has a higher IQ than Albert Einstein. She completed high school at 8 years old and is now earning 2 engineering degrees at the same time. She is working on becoming an astronaut and wants to colonize Mars. Genius people who beat the system, part 3. A girls' college had a rule that said you can't have carved pumpkins in your dorm room. But the rule didn't say anything about pineapples, so she went ahead and carved one of those. This guy's new job required a photo of him in a suit for their website. But since he doesn't own a suit, he just photoshopped his face over this guy's face, and honestly, it looks pretty real. This sign says no bicycle riding, rollerblading, roller skating, skateboarding, or scooter riding, but it doesn't say no unicycling. These signs say that if you park on this side, you have to pay for parking, and if you park on the other side, you will get towed. So this guy parked in between both of the signs, so he doesn't have to do either. That's pure genius. A guy posted this photo online and said whenever he parks illegally, he puts a fake ticket on his windshield so the cops won't give him a real one. That's pretty creative. Genius people who beat the system, part 2. A class of students were required to pick a Marvel character and then write a resume and cover letter pretending to be them. A student thought of the perfect idea and picked Groot, and since all he says is "I am Groot," that's what he put for everything. A girl's mom locked her phone in the bottom drawer because she misbehaved. But her daughter realized that all she had to do was take out the top drawer and she could get her phone back. A girl's dad went to Vegas for 5 days and put a camera in the living room to make sure she didn't have any parties. But the girl wasn't going to let that stop her, so she came up with this pretty creative solution. This parking spot says only green vehicles can park there, but I think the owner of this car took it a little too serious. This kid was playing a game on his Xbox when his mom told him to go play outside, so he literally grabbed his Xbox and played outside. So we all know that Kobe Bryant sadly passed away a year and a half ago. But I bet you didn't know that in 2021, Kobe just made $400 million in one day. So back in 2014, Kobe invested $6 million for about 10% ownership of the sports drink company Body Armor. And on November 2nd, 2021, Coca-Cola bought Body Armor for $5.6 billion. Which means Kobe's $6 million investment just paid his family $400 million. Kobe is such a legend that even though he isn't here in person, he is still taking care of his family financially. Vanessa Bryant, who is Kobe's wife, congratulated him on the Body Armor deal in an Instagram post. Pause now to read what she had to say. Genius people who beat the system. Up until 2019, women were not allowed to attend soccer matches in Iran. But in 2018, these 5 girls successfully snuck into a championship soccer game disguised as men. Some schools don't allow guys and girls to be in their dorm rooms together. But this couple came up with a very creative solution to still hang out and watch movies together. A mayor in Brazil prohibited bar owners from setting tables on the sidewalk. So the bar owners came up with an amazing solution that honestly looks pretty dangerous but also fun. This man from Turkey was banned from his favorite soccer team stadium for a year, but he didn't let that stop him from missing an important game. He rented a crane and raised himself high enough so he could see the game, and he even led the crowd in a chant. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, part 4. In 2016, engineers at Nissan created the office chairs of the future. By linking each chair to Wi-Fi and adding motorized wheels, the engineers were able to create an army of chairs that tuck themselves away at the clap of the hand. Snappy Screen has made protecting yourself from the sun easier than ever. The machine spins you around and coats you in a perfect layer of sunscreen. You can choose your desired SPF, and the booth comes with disposable shades to keep the sunblock from getting in your eyes. Students from the University of Washington created a pair of gloves that can translate the physical movements of sign language into spoken language. Now people without the ability to vocalize can communicate with non-sign language speakers easier than ever. Scientists at Disney have developed a special charger that can be built into the very walls of certain rooms. These rooms can wirelessly charge up to 10 devices by reverberating electromagnetic waves off of metal walls. Many people claim to have found the reason as to why 2020 and 2021 have been the worst years ever. So supposedly this is what the fallen angel Lucifer looks like, and this is what the moon looked like on March 31st, 2020. As you can see, they look exactly the same, and many people claim that this was the beginning of all the bad things that happened in 2020 and also in 2021. I already made a video talking about that unexplained diving footage, but after I posted it, I found a new clip that explains everything. In the new video that I found, you can see this scary looking lady reach out and grab the camera. I quickly realized that it looks very similar to the supernatural horror movie The Deep House, which is about divers exploring a submerged haunted house. Here are some side-by-side screenshots from the unexplained footage and the Deep House trailer. So the footage isn't real, it's just clips people took from the Deep House movie that they posted online without any context. The full film just came out and is available now to buy or rent, so if you liked those clips, you should check out the full movie. This unexplained diving footage has recently gone viral on Reddit and is freaking everyone out. The footage shows divers finding an old creepy underwater structure with ancient writing on it. But when they go inside and they see the strange things on the shelves, the footage abruptly ends. No one seems to know where the footage came from, and everyone is arguing on if it's even real or not. The Dumbest Lottery Winners, Part 2. After winning $31 million, Billy Bob Harrell quit his job, gave millions of dollars to his church and to charities, and bought multiple cars and homes for his friends and family. But Billy was just too nice though. Whenever anyone asked him for any amount of money, he would just give it to them, even to strangers. And all this spending plus a divorce left him basically broke, and he tragically committed suicide just 2 years after winning the lottery. Americo Lopez and his co-workers had been taking part in a lottery pool since 2007, and in 2009 Lopez discovered he had the winning ticket in his hand. But rather than share the $38.5 million with his colleagues like he was supposed to, he decided to claim the ticket and keep all the money to himself. All of Lopez's co-workers sued him and took him to court, and Lopez was forced to pay each of them $2 million. This McDonald's worker paid for a family's meal after a mom forgot her wallet, and how she repays him will shock you. Brittany Reed was leaving football practice with her 3 children when her youngest son began crying because he was hungry. So Brittany decided to go to McDonald's to get everyone food. After she ordered the food and pulled up to the drive-thru window to pay, all 3 kids were crying and she realized she left her wallet at home. She looked at the McDonald's employee with tears in her eyes from being stressed and annoyed. And she then told the employee that she would have to cancel her order. The employee was 16-year-old Wyatt Jones. And without hesitation, Wyatt pulled out his own card and paid for all of the family's food. Brittany later found out that Wyatt was saving up to buy his own car. So she set up a GoFundMe account for him to repay him for what he did. And it ended up raising over $50,000. And McDonald's also gave him a reward for what he did. People who gained real-life superpowers after an accident, Part 3. In 1971, Edwin Robinson was in a severe car crash that made him completely blind and partially deaf. 9 years later, he ventured outside his home to rescue his pet chicken from the rain when he was suddenly struck by lightning. But due to the high voltage blast from the lightning strike, he miraculously could see and hear perfectly fine again. During Adam Rayner's early life, he suffered from dwarfism, and at his tallest, he came in at 4.5 feet. But at the age of 21, he developed a tumor on his pituitary gland, which led him to grow to a staggering 7 feet 8 inches within a few years. This made him the only human to ever be classified as both a dwarf and a giant in the same lifetime. Rory Curtis got into a car accident that was so severe he fell into a coma for several days. Thankfully he came out of it, and when he woke up he could magically speak perfect French, even though he had only taken a few French lessons 12 years before the accident. The strangest last meal requests on death row, Part 3. Ricky Ray Rector ordered steak, fried chicken, cherry Kool-Aid, and a slice of pecan pie. But he left his slice of pecan pie untouched, and when he was asked why he didn't eat it, he said he was saving it for later. But the strange part is that after his meal he was going to be executed, so did he think he was going to come back from the dead to eat his pie? Lawrence Brewer decided to indulge in an enormous feast. His order was so large that if I read the whole thing we would be here all day, so just pause now to read the whole thing. But the order wasn't the strange part. The strange part was when he received all the food, he refused to eat any of it, claiming that he wasn't hungry. And after this little stunt, Texas ended the last meal request forever. Odell Barnes didn't request a normal meal, instead he requested justice, equality, and world peace. But a murderer advocating for world peace is pretty ironic though. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, Part 3. In South Korea, some red traffic lights have a countdown delay that shows you how long it will be until it turns green. And it has been proven to reduce the accident rate by more than 50%. Next, you can say goodbye to hard-to-reach wall sockets with the Rambler socket. The Rambler socket has an extension cord built into the wall itself and can also be used the normal way. It contains about 5 feet of extra cabling and requires only a gentle tug to coil it back into the wall. Next, the Let's Pizza vending machine is the only machine in the world that can prepare Italian pizza from scratch in under 3 minutes. And the machine actually offers 4 different varieties of pizzas. Next, with this adjustable hot sauce, you can pick your spice levels. The clever device mixes a blend of mild and hot sauce, so all you have to do is twist the cap and select the level of heat you want. People who gained real-life superpowers after an accident, Part 2. At 10 years old, Orlando Sorrell was hit by a baseball on the left side of his head really hard. After the accident, his only side effect was headaches, but when they went away, his memory became superhuman. He could remember literally everything on any given day after his accident, like the weather, what he wore, what he ate, what he did, and much more. Khan Trikan from Thailand was cooking fried chicken one day when he was accidentally splashed by oil from head to toe. But when this happened, he discovered he had a superpower. He had no burns or anything on his skin. And he now fries chicken and plunges his hands into boiling fat at his restaurant without any pain or signs of burns. 12-year-old Nikolai was walking home from school when he was electrocuted by a faulty wire but made it home safely. The next day while eating breakfast, he dropped his spoon and it stuck to his body. He then noticed he could stick many different objects to his body and is now nicknamed the Magnetic Boy. The strangest last meal requests on death row, Part 2. John Spankelink was always known as a heavy drinker, so when it came to his final meal, he denied any special food to be prepared. All he asked for was a single flask of Jack Daniel's whiskey, which he shared with the prison superintendent. Ronnie Lee Gardner was determined to make his last meal last as long as possible. His order wasn't too crazy. He asked for steak and lobster tail, apple pie, and a 7-Up, but his other request was pure genius. He requested to watch all 3 Lord of the Rings movies while eating, and surprisingly he was permitted to do so. And with a combined runtime of 11 hours, it must have been the longest last meal ever. Philip Workman's last meal request was for a large vegetarian pizza to be given to a random homeless person. But prison officials refused to do so and he ate nothing. But surprisingly, on the day of his death, lots of homeless shelters in Tennessee received large amounts of vegetarian pizzas from people all over the country. Here are some times when actors almost died on set, part 2. In Lord of the Rings The Two Towers, the actor Viggo Mortensen was supposed to float down the river acting as if he was dead. But the speed of the current plus the weight of the costume caused a real danger. When he reached this rock, the current pulled him underwater and he nearly stayed there until he eventually kicked off the wall and got back to the surface. In Back to the Future 3, Marty McFly is captured by bandits and hung with a noose until he's quickly rescued. The reason McFly's squirming looks so genuine is because the actor was really being hung. He even passed out for half a minute until the director noticed and saved him. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere, part 2. Some elevators in Asia have giant buttons on the floor that you can kick to mark what floor you're going to. This was designed to help people who are carrying things and can't press the buttons with their hands. There's a mall that lets you leave your dog in a safe spot while you shop. The spot has a security system so that only you could open them, as well as lighting and air conditioning. In the United States, there's a shoe store that lets you test the shoes on different surfaces. The test box includes gravel, asphalt, and even materials like Lego. Finally, there's restaurants that give you a controller with 3 buttons. The first button lets the waiters know when you're ready to order. The second is to let them know when you're ready to pay. And the third one is to cancel your order. The idea is to avoid the waiters from constantly asking you if you're ready to order. Photos you're not allowed to see. You're not allowed to go into Area 51, but a pilot named Gabriel Ziefman broke those rules and flew over top. He took this photo in 2020 and it's the best one we have. Cameras have always been banned in the Supreme Court, but in 1932, Eric Sullivan snuck in a camera. He pretended to have a broken arm and hid his camera inside of the cast. 5 years later, there was another photo taken. A lady cut a hole in her purse and put a small camera in it. Since 1878, the most powerful people in the world meet at this forest in California where they do lots of ceremonies and rituals. This includes presidents, billionaires, and business people. But a photographer named Gabriel Mulan snuck in and took photos of them, where this one shows them performing a ritual. Here are the weirdest things to ever wash up on the beach, part 3. In 2016, thousands of snowballs were found on a beach in Siberia. It's the first time something like this has ever happened and probably the last. If you've ever thought about sending a message in a bottle, somebody already did 101 years ago. A German fisherman found a message in a bottle and actually managed to get it to the daughter of the sender. Although it looks like something out of a movie, a robotic hand was found on a beach near New York, and no one really knows where it came from. And if that one wasn't strange enough, a dinosaur bone was found on a beach in Washington. Scientists analyzed it and said that it could be from a T-Rex or a Velociraptor, and it's estimated to be around 80 million years old. And finally, the creepiest one of all, between 2007 and 2008, multiple feet were found still in shoes on the beaches in Canada. In total, 7 feet were found and there's still no explanation. Here's what would happen if Queen Elizabeth died right now. First, Prince Charles would become king and his wife would become queen. Next, the news of Queen Elizabeth's death would become public and within minutes it would be trending all around the world. After that, the royal family website would be turned to black and every news reporter would be forced to wear black. Next, there would be 12 days of mourning in the UK. And her funeral would take place 9 days after her death, becoming a national holiday. After that, Queen Elizabeth will be buried in a vault in Windsor Castle. And lastly, all the money in the UK would change, replacing Queen Elizabeth's head with Charles. Here's what would happen if everyone flushed the toilet at the same time. The first thing to get overwhelmed by the vast amount of waste being flushed would be the lift stations. These are stations that serve to push your waste uphill towards its final destination, the treatment plant. But you can only push so much poop up the pipe. Eventually the pipe gets overwhelmed and can't handle any more wastewater. At that point, it would back up to where it all started, your bathroom. Your toilet would begin to overflow with substances that were supposed to be delivered to the treatment plant. And it wouldn't stop there. The overflow would fill up every wastewater line in your home, including your shower, your sink, and even your washing machine. But not all of our pipes will be able to handle this excess. Many will begin exploding underground and flooding our streets with waste. Here are some animals that got the middle finger from evolution. Sometimes the horns of rams and goats grow so curved and big that they penetrate their skull, causing their death. Horses and donkeys can suffer from abnormal growth in their hooves. If their hooves aren't trimmed, they can no longer walk because of the pain, causing them to die from starvation. When turtles fall on their back, it's really hard for them to roll back over. When this happens, they usually die from too much sun, starvation, or attacks from other animals. During mating season, deers get into such aggressive fights with each other that their antlers get stuck together to the point where they can't be untied. When this happens and no one can separate them, the deer die because they're unable to eat. Finally, the deer pig is famous for its two upper tusks. The growth becomes so uncontrollable that it pierces the upper part of their jaw. And in some cases, the tusks will keep growing until it pierces their skull, causing their death. How the most famous magic tricks were performed. The secret to the classic trick where a woman is cut in half by a saw is to use a box divided in two parts. The woman lies down in one box and fake feet come out the other box. To swallow the sword without getting hurt, the magicians place their head up to align their throat and stomach. This way the sword enters in a straight line and doesn't touch anything. The guillotine is one of the most dangerous and famous tricks out there. The secret so that nothing goes wrong is the bottom of the guillotine has hidden compartments and blocks to stop the blade before it reaches the person's neck. To perform the trick where a magician lies on his back and gets ran over by a huge truck, all the weight of the truck is on the opposite side of the magician, so he doesn't really feel that much pain. The dumbest lottery winners. After winning $1.3 million in the California lottery, Dennis Rossi filed for divorce from Thomas Rossi so she wouldn't have to share the money with him. Thomas decided to sue her for violating state law, and he kept all the money. Michael Carroll won $14 million when he was just 19. After claiming he wouldn't spend the money on dumb things, he bought multiple luxury cars, mansions, and other expensive things. To this day, he lost all of his money and works at a cookie factory. Jack Whitaker won $315 million in the US lottery. When he claimed it, he took it all in cash, but soon after, thieves broke into his house and took millions of dollars. Here are some things that Disneyland doesn't want you to know. For a long time, there's been a rumor that some of the bones on the Pirates of the Caribbean ride are from real human skeletons. In 2014, a rider asked an employee about the rumor as he was getting off the ride, and she said the skeleton sitting above the bed in the treasure room contains a real human skull. Underneath Disneyland, there's a massive system of underground tunnels. One of the purposes of the tunnels is to keep the magic alive by hiding the characters when they're not supposed to be seen. Emergency vehicles also use the tunnels to get to their patient while trying to be unseen by the public so they don't kill the vibe. Disneyland strategically releases a vanilla scent through smellitizers which look like speakers. They do this because the scent is proven to calm people down, and it also makes them hungry, so they spend more money on food. At the main entrance, they use the smell of popcorn. And at Pirates of the Caribbean, they release a scent of wet wood and sea salt. Genius inventions that should exist everywhere. In Poland, this bike path was made using thousands of tiny luminophores, which is a material that produces low levels of light for 10 hours, then recharges itself from the sun. The bike path doesn't require electricity and provides safety for people biking at night. 20 different cities in France have already implemented this. It allows you to charge your phone using pedal power. The goal of the company is to promote an active lifestyle while making sure your phone doesn't die. People who use the bike also get free Wi-Fi. The Cal Maritime Police Department in California has placed a safe zone outside which is watched by a camera 24/7. They made this zone so you don't have to worry about getting hurt or robbed when purchasing things from people in your city. This man was buried alive for 7 days, and you won't believe what happened to him. On April 5th, 1999, professional magician and stuntman David Blaine performed his first ever public endurance stunt. He buried himself 6 feet underground in a plexiglass coffin for 7 days and nights. He had a 3-ton water-filled tank put on top of his coffin so people could look into the coffin and see him from up on the ground. Over the course of the 7 days, an estimated 75,000 people visited the site, even including former President Donald Trump. Oxygen and water were fed into the coffin, and when he needed to pee, it was removed via catheter. And for the full 7 days of the stunt, he didn't eat anything. On the 7th day, hundreds of onlookers and news teams were stationed at the site for the coffin opening. David then emerged from the coffin, and this is what he told the crowd.
I saw something truly incredible. People were smiling, and that made all of this work.
The strangest last meal requests on death row. In 1963, Victor Harry Fager was sentenced to death for a kidnap and murder. For his final meal, he requested a single olive with the seed left in it. After his execution, the seed was found in his pocket. They believed he wanted to be buried with it so a tree would sprout on top of him. Gerald Lee Mitchell requested an assorted bag of Jolly Ranchers and he ate every single one. In 1990, James Edward Smith requested a lump of soil, but since dirt isn't on the list of permitted food, he was served a cup of yogurt instead. Thomas Grasso was convicted of robbery and murder. He requested a bunch of things like a cheeseburger from Burger King, 2 strawberry milkshakes, but the thing he wanted the most was SpaghettiOs, which he didn't receive. Instead, he got spaghetti, which was supposedly too warm. His last words before dying were, "I did not get my SpaghettiOs, I got spaghetti. I want the press to know this." People who gained real-life superpowers after an accident. Jason Padgett was a party animal who hated school and got terrible grades. But one day 2 men savagely robbed and attacked Jason outside of a karaoke bar, leaving him with a severe concussion. The concussion caused him to become a mathematical genius and made him learn fractal geometry, which he had never been taught before. When Derek Amato was 39 years old, he hit his head after diving into a swimming pool and was diagnosed with a concussion and 35% hearing loss. After that, Derek began to see black and white keys in his head, and out of nowhere, he began to play the piano like an expert. Ben McMahon was in a car accident in 2015 and fell into a coma for a week. When he woke up, he could speak perfect Chinese even though he had only learned the basics as a child. Tony Ciceria was struck by lightning after making a call in a phone booth. Within a couple days, he was addicted to music, which he wasn't before. After trying the piano, he became a musical artist, composing his own music. Here's what would happen if we lost gravity for just 5 seconds. Since the world spins at 1,000 miles per hour, everything that isn't secured firmly to the ground would instantly go flying. There would be winds almost 6 times stronger than the ones produced by Hurricane Katrina. That means in just 5 seconds, you could be blown 1.4 miles in any direction. At the same time, the gases in the atmosphere would drift out into space. This would make us lose huge amounts of oxygen, and the sudden sharp drop in air pressure would instantly shatter everyone's inner ears. And since the planet itself is held together by gravity, without it, the Earth would start to expand. This would cause major earthquakes, tsunamis, floods, volcanic eruptions, and many more natural disasters. The Earth's crust would literally open up and swallow several major cities. And when gravity was restored, you would either get crushed by something or you'd hit the ground so hard you'd most likely die. Here is what all of the planets in our solar system sound like from space. First up is Mercury. Next is Venus. Next is Earth. Next is Mars. Next is Jupiter. Next is Saturn. Next is Uranus. And lastly is Neptune. Here are the weirdest and most unbelievable creatures to ever wash up on the beach, part 2. First, in 2016, a group of fishermen stumbled across this huge 176-pound smelly thing that looked a lot like a rock. At first, they didn't think much of it, but shockingly, it was actually whale vomit, which is used to formulate luxury fragrances. Which means whale vomit can be sold at very high prices. This 176-pound chunk of the stuff was valued at $3 million. Next, in July of 2018, this creature that looks like a demon was found washed up on the shores of Montauk, New York. Supposedly, the creepy-looking carcass for some reason wasn't available for autopsy as it was carted away by an unknown group of people. Many have speculated it might be the mutant product of experimentation at the controversial Plum Island Animal Disease Center, which is near where the creature was found. You can only ride this roller coaster once. Julionis Urbonis designed this roller coaster called the Euthanasia Coaster. It's capable of holding up to 24 passengers. Once they're all on board, it starts to slowly ascend to the top, which is 1,700 feet in the air. That's just a little bit smaller than the tallest building in America. Once they're at the top, it gives everyone the decision to stop and go back down safely. After that, everyone has to manually press a button to start the ride. Then it falls at a speed of 220 miles per hour and goes through 7 loops that keep getting smaller. It's designed like this so riders maintain 10 Gs of force for a full 60 seconds. Everyone's blood would rush to their feet, leaving no blood left in their brain. This causes them to lose their vision and eventually black out and die. It was designed for people with incurable diseases who wanted a fun and unpainful death. Here's what would happen if you were tickled for 24 hours straight. 10 minutes in, you would already feel extremely unpleasant, and at this point you would already want to stop. After 1 hour of non-stop giggles, your core would be extremely sore. It would be the best workout of your life and the nastiest one. Okay, you've been tickled for 10 hours now. It's pure torture. As a matter of fact, tickling has been used in sinister ways in the past. During the Han Dynasty in the 3rd century BCE, the Chinese used it as torture. Anyways, now you are in the last stretch and it will not be pleasant. The constant laughter you've had for 15 hours could lead you to pass out. It could cause you both mental and physical harm. At the 24-hour mark, you'd have lost control of your body and you wouldn't be able to regulate your breathing and you'd be very stressed. You could have asphyxia, a brain aneurysm, or a heart attack, so you could actually be tickled to death. In August of this year, ABC News actually aired a satanic ritual on television. It is seriously going to blow your mind that this really happened. Obviously, tons of viewers were upset by this, and many people think that this was done on purpose. Here's the clip.
An arrest in Brisbane last year.
Wait for it.
Yup, they literally aired a Satanist group during a ritual. But what's also super weird is how they just go back to normal afterwards. Take a look.
Recent outages.
Now the worst part about all of this is that this was not a live broadcast, it was pre-filmed, which means that someone edited this short segment into it purposefully. Here are some of the most shocking deathbed confessions ever that'll send shivers down your spine. In 1987, a woman named Alice Mock was on her deathbed when she confessed something to her neighbor that was truly messed up. Back in 1975, Alice accused a black man named Wayman Camille Jr. of breaking into her apartment, robbing her, and raping her. After Alice told this to police, Camille was arrested and sentenced to 15 years in prison even though there was no evidence against him. But when Alice was on her deathbed, she admitted that she had actually invited Camille into her apartment and actually robbed him when he was sleeping. And she only made up this lie because she feared she would get evicted if her landlord learned she had invited a black man into her apartment. And she also didn't want Camille to know that she had taken money from him. After Alice's confession, Camille was finally released after being wrongfully imprisoned for 12 years. Here are some crazy coincidences that you won't believe actually happened. Shortly before their wedding, Nick and Amy decided to go through Nick's baby photos. In this picture of him playing at the beach during a vacation, Amy noticed herself in the background 11 years before they met. Violet Giuseppe was a ship nurse on the 3 sister ships, the Titanic, Britannic, and Olympic. She was on board the Olympic when it collided with a warship and almost sank, when the Titanic hit an iceberg and sank, and when the Britannic hit an underwater mine and also sank. She survived all 3. The last person who died constructing the Hoover Dam was the son of the first person who died constructing the Hoover Dam. But the creepiest part is they both died on December 20th in different years. Here are the weirdest and most unbelievable creatures to ever wash up on the beach. First, residents of the Philippines were shocked and terrified when this hairy sea monster washed ashore. But when scientists observed the gigantic rotting sea creature, they said that it was probably the remains of a whale. And the hair-like strands covering it were most likely decamping muscle fibers, which is absolutely disgusting. Next, back in 2017 off the coast of South Africa, 3 great white sharks washed ashore but with something very strange missing. All 3 sharks were missing their livers, and scientists were able to examine them and they uncovered the cause of death. The ones that did it were actually killer whales, which are actually known to attack sharks and rip out and eat their organs. Next, a deep-sea anglerfish washed ashore in California in May of this year. This is an extremely rare find since these fish usually lurk in dark water around 3,000 feet below the surface. So how and why did it end up on the shores of a beach? So astronomers discovered a strange repeating radio signal near the center of the Milky Way galaxy, and they have no idea what it is. We need to talk about this. First off, the radio signal is unlike any other energy signature ever seen before. The object creating the radio signal is called this and was discovered by radio astronomers from Australia. But what is really baffling astronomers is when they attempted to observe the object using telescopes, something very weird happened. When they were finally able to view the object, the signal would just completely disappear, which has led astronomers to believe what they are witnessing is something brand new that we've never seen before. Let me know what you think it is.
Yo, we are straight up, oh my god. Okay. Oh, this is really dangerous.
I got tagged in that video a lot and people wanted to know why is the sky that red/orange color, so here's everything you need to know. It is due to the Caldor fire that has been engulfing California since August 14th, and it has already burned down 217,000 acres of land. Now the reason the sky is red/orange is because when smoke from active wildfires is in the air, those smoke particles eliminate blue light before it reaches your eyes. This makes it so only the red and yellow light are able to pass through these smoke particles, which leads to these red/orange tinted skies that looks like a scene from Stranger Things. This is the most dangerous candy ever created, and you're seriously going to be shocked that this ever made it onto the shelves. This candy was called Hippie Sippy, and as you can guess, it came out in the 60s. Basically, there are multicolored chocolate balls in the vial, and to get them, you have to suck through a needle. And yes, the similarities to drugs are 100% on purpose, as it was meant to get kids to normalize heroin, which uses needles. It had taglines on the packaging saying, "I'll try anything," but fortunately after 1 year this was pulled from all the shelves.
A Coreia do Norte acabou de proibir o Dia das Mães. Mas você realmente não vai acreditar no motivo. Se você pensou que a Coreia do Norte não poderia piorar, espere até ouvir isso. Kim Jong-un acabou de proibir o Dia das Mães na Coreia do Norte por honestamente o motivo mais estranho que já ouvi. Eles proibiram o Dia das Mães porque aparentemente estava distraindo os cidadãos de seu amor por Kim Jong-un. Kim Jong-un não queria que seus cidadãos amassem alguém mais do que ele. A Coreia do Norte deve ser o único país que tentou fazer com que seus cidadãos amassem seu líder mais do que sua própria família.
Back when El Chapo was a free man, he would sometimes go out to eat at restaurants, and trust me when I say that you'd be very happy if you were there when he came in. As soon as El Chapo showed up at the restaurant, you were gonna know about it, because his men would literally go around and take everyone's phones. He obviously didn't want someone calling the police. Then he would just enjoy his meal, and when he was done, his men would give back everyone their phones. And then he would also pay the bills for everyone at the restaurant. This guy has probably stolen money from you, but when you find out what he did with it, you'll be glad that he did. His name is Hamza Bundalaj, and he is one of the most ruthless hackers the world has ever seen. He was living in his mom's basement in New York when he decided to attempt something no man had ever done. He hacked into 217 banks and 60 million bank accounts. Just to put that into perspective, that's over 18% of the US population. Him and his friend got away with $4 billion in a matter of months. But you see, there's a reason why they're smiling, and you won't believe what they did with the money. They donated over $280 million to charities in Africa and Palestine. However, they were still sentenced to 15 years in prison. That video got 100 million views and lots of people were asking if the handler ended up being okay, so I did some research and here's everything you need to know. The gator's handler named Lindsay Bull opened the door to feed the reptile in a small pool when it bit her hand and wouldn't let go. Right when the gator bit her, it performed the infamous death roll. If Lindsay didn't roll with the gator just like she did, the gator would have took her whole arm completely off. A bystander named Donnie Wiseman jumped on top of the gator and pinned it down for Lindsay to be able to escape. Lindsay was immediately rushed to the hospital and underwent surgery, but should have complete use of her hand after treatment. Bullies called this kid a monkey, but what the internet did for him when they heard his story will restore your faith in humanity. This is 21-year-old Zanziman Ellie, and for his whole life he has been bullied for the way he looks. You see, Ellie has a condition called microcephaly, which causes his head to be way smaller than the rest of his body. People in his village bully him and call him a monkey because he eats grass, climbs trees, and lives an unusual lifestyle. He was beaten and abused by other kids and villagers because he was seen as an animal and not a human. And the more he was bullied, the more he feared people, which caused him to run away from home every day to hide in the jungle, which really worried his mom. But after Ellie's story went viral, a YouTuber named Aftermax started a GoFundMe to help Ellie and his family, which ended up raising over $6,000. Aftermax then gave all the money to Ellie's mom, which she used to buy a brand new home to give Ellie a better childhood. This man's hand actually got stuck in his stomach, but just wait until you see how it looks like now. Carlos Moriarty was working on a machine used to make plastic tableware when his left hand got stuck inside. When he finally got it out, he literally had no skin on his hand and he lost all of his veins and the tops of his fingers. He got rushed to the hospital, and when he woke up after his surgery, his doctor told him that he did a very rare procedure. They sewed his hand in his belly to develop new tissue and tendon material, and he had to keep it in there for 42 days. After the 42 days, the doctors then took skin from his leg and put it on his hand. And now, this is what it looks like. The CDC has an official guideline with steps on how to survive a zombie apocalypse if it really were to happen. I am not joking. If you go to the CDC's website, you can find a zombie preparedness section. And with how crazy 2021 is, anything is possible. So let's go through the CDC's zombie survival checklist. You're going to need water, food, medications, tools and supplies, and more. Go ahead and pause now to read all of it. Next, you'll need to come up with an emergency plan. This includes where you would go and who you would call to join your zombie survival group. Imagine how easy it would be to survive a zombie apocalypse if you could join Daryl Dixon. Well, now you actually can in the mobile game State of Survival. It's a super fun game where you kill zombies with your friends, build awesome post-apocalyptic shelters, and they just released a collab with The Walking Dead, so now you can even play with Daryl Dixon. If you think you can survive, click the link in my bio. Welcome to ridiculous things going on around the world right now that for some reason you just haven't heard about. Part 29. Elon Musk is going to launch a satellite that will beam advertisements into space. He will be partnering with a Canadian technology startup to launch a satellite named CubeSat into orbit. Now you might be thinking that you'll be able to see the ads in space from the ground, but that's just not true. Instead, the satellite will look like this, with one side having a massive screen, where companies will be able to place their ads there by buying pixels on the display screen with cryptocurrency. A selfie stick will be attached to it, which films the display screen, and the footage from the screen will be live streamed on Twitch and YouTube for people to watch it back on Earth. And the CubeSat is predicted to launch in early 2022. Men who have bigger noses have been also found to have bigger peepees, a recent study suggests. The study looked at the corpses of 126 men within 3 days of death and measured a range of body parts. And apparently the length of the men's noses correlated to the size of the peepee. Although there was a correlation between nose and peepee size, doctors couldn't find a reason as to why this might be. So the question is, how big is your nose? This 29-year-old man married a 4-year-old girl, but the reason why will make you cry. Little Abby was diagnosed with cancer at just 2 years old and had spent her whole life in and out of the hospital. She was sad because she just wanted to be a normal girl, but that's when she met her nurse, Matt Hickling. Matt checked up on Abby every single day, but in his heart he felt like she didn't have much time left. So Matt made it his mission to make sure that Abby felt loved and appreciated before she passed away. Abby loved him so much that she actually told her mom that she wanted to marry him one day. However, only a few days later, Matt received a phone call from Abby's mom. Her mom asked him if Matt and Abby could get married, and no, I don't mean legally. A few days later, they had the cutest little wedding at the hospital. Even though it wasn't real, Abby will remember this for the rest of her life. 15 months after her wedding, Abby completed her chemotherapy treatments and is now cancer-free. A girl got expelled from school for posting this exact picture, but you will seriously not believe the reason why. It was the night of Kayla's 15th birthday when her mom snapped this photo of her at a restaurant in California. Her mom instantly shared it to Facebook and they thought nothing of it. That is until a few days later when Kayla received a furious letter from her school's principal. She was permanently expelled from school, but the reason why will shock you. So Kayla's school was actually a very religious Christian academy named Whitefield Academy. They didn't like that she was wearing a rainbow sweater in front of a rainbow cake, implying that she was part of the LGBTQ community. According to the principal of the school, this goes against their beliefs. This tiny 1-inch jellyfish's sting won't actually kill you, but it will make you kill yourself. I am not joking, let me explain. The Arunkanji jellyfish's sting causes a state that scientists have described as a feeling of impending doom. People that get stung believe they're going to die, and they're so certain of it that they'll actually beg their doctors to kill them just to get it over with, or they'll just kill themselves. And if that isn't bad enough, another symptom it gives you is relentless nausea and vomiting. How does vomiting every minute to 2 minutes for up to 12 hours sound? Amazing. It also gives you lower back pain that people describe as similar to an electric drill drilling into your spine. There's no antidote, and the only treatment is managing the symptoms. And where do you think you can find this amazing jellyfish? Australia, of course. So hippos are taking over Colombia right now, and it's Pablo Escobar's fault. And no, I'm not joking, let me explain. In the early 1990s, when Pablo Escobar was making millions of dollars per day, he decided to create his own zoo where he had all sorts of animals. But when Escobar was killed, the Colombian government had to do something with all the animals in his zoo. So they ended up sending all of the animals to local zoos except for Pablo's 4 hippos. They were way too large and aggressive to capture, so the government decided to just leave them alone and let them die. But the hippos didn't die. They instead decided to take over Colombia. And now, almost 30 years later, hippos are the most invasive animals in Colombia. They are breeding like crazy, killing local wildlife, and not to mention they are one of the most dangerous animals on the planet for humans. And the locals have even nicknamed the hippos the cocaine hippos, since the only reason they are there is because of Escobar. In 1991, the drug lord Pablo Escobar surrendered to Colombian authorities and agreed to spend 5 years in prison, but there was a catch. He would design the prison himself, and he would be guarded by people he wanted to guard him. Since he was building the prison himself, he built an extravagant hotel prison on a mountain that he bought. His opulent palace included a soccer field, jacuzzi and sauna, multiple pools, a gym, a waterfall, and a helicopter landing pad. So even in prison, Escobar did whatever he wanted, which reminds me of Guns of Glory. In Guns of Glory, you can build and defend your own castle, form alliances with your best friends, or just decide to choose violence and do whatever you want when you want, just like Escobar did. There's also pirates, open sea warfare, treasure hunting, and so much more. So if you want to join the world that has no laws and no morals, then click the link in my bio.
Yo, bro, who got you smiling like that? Like, kill the lights, so baby, close your eyes. The way you're looking at me, you got me mesmerized. Something I can't escape, feel like I'm lost in space. You got that good loving, girl, if you leave me, I might throw my heart away.
Elon Musk just announced that Tesla will be building humanoid robots, which they are calling the Tesla Bot. The Tesla Bot will be 5'8" and weigh 125 pounds, and its purpose would be to eliminate dangerous, repetitive, and boring tasks. Basically, the Tesla Bot can do any physical tasks humans don't want to do, like doing dangerous construction work or even going to get your groceries for you. Elon said that the robots would have a personality of their own, as they have machine self-learning chips inside of them. He also said that they won't be strong enough to overpower a human or be fast enough to overtake a human. But we will have to wait and see what happens, since a working prototype of the Tesla Bot is coming sometime next year. So a couple days ago, someone on the dark web said that they hacked into T-Mobile servers and had stolen personal data from more than 100 million different users. That data includes names, addresses, phone numbers, social security numbers, and driver's license information, which is all details that the company collects to verify the identities of its customers. Since that post blew up on the dark web, T-Mobile has come out and said that they were indeed hacked. T-Mobile said that they are investigating for what information was actually stolen. and that the investigation will take some time. Meanwhile, the hacker is asking for 6 Bitcoin, which is worth around $275,000, for a subset of data including 30 million social security numbers and driver's licenses. And the hacker also said that they are already privately selling the rest of the data. So the Taliban have officially taken over Afghanistan, but many people don't exactly know how this happened. So here's everything you need to know. The US has been trying to get out of Afghanistan, which is its longest war for several years now. The Taliban, which is a military Islamic group, ran the country of Afghanistan from 1996 to 2001. In 2001, American troops removed the Taliban from power over Afghanistan in a matter of months when they invaded to find and remove Al-Qaeda. Al-Qaeda is who orchestrated the 9/11 attacks and were being harbored by the Taliban. Last year, then President Donald Trump announced a plan to pull out and sign a deal with the Taliban that limited US military action against them. President Biden then announced that the last troops would leave by the end of August. And as the end of August drew close, the Taliban began overrunning city after city since the US wasn't there to stop them, and they were able to seize control over the capital once again. Cops could not believe the reason this man robbed the bank, and the punishment the judge gave him is absolutely hilarious. In 2017, Lawrence Ripple gave a bank teller a note saying, "I have a gun, give me money." Right away, the bank teller gave him all the money that was around her, which was about $3,000. And at this point, most robbers would leave the bank, right? Well, not Lawrence. He took the money and then found a nice comfy chair in the lobby, which he sat down on until the police came. He was arrested by the cops, who were obviously confused, until they spoke with his wife. His wife revealed that Lawrence left her a note saying that he'd rather be in jail than be with her. And when his court date came, the judge gave him 6 months of house arrest.
This is so severe, God! It's brutal out here.
That video got over 40 million views, and a lot of people were wondering, how does that pool work and where does the water go? So I'm here to tell you everything you need to know. I did some research, and the specific pool he is at the Atlantic, which is an apartment building in Philadelphia that has a pretty big infinity pool on the roof. An infinity pool is built like any other pool, except there's one section that dips, allowing water to flow into a catch pool. And the water is pumped from the catch pool to the regular pool, so the regular pool remains full. This is what the pool he is in looks like from the ground, so it's impossible for people below the building to get water on them. And the water just flows from the regular pool into the catch pool. And you can't actually float off the edge of the water because you're not actually on the edge of the building, as it's just an illusion.
Why did no one tell me how big America actually is?
He's correct. Most people don't realize how big the US actually is. But this all gets even crazier because this world map that we all know is a complete lie, and I'm gonna prove it to you. The state of Alaska alone is bigger than most of Europe. Africa is so big that the entire continental US fits in just the Sahara Desert. But you can also squeeze in China, Western Europe, Argentina, India, Scandinavia, and the UK and still have room left over. Russia looks pretty big at the top of the map, but when you place it near Africa, it looks much smaller. Greenland looks massive on the map, but when you place it on top of North America, it's tiny. Antarctica is so big, it reaches from Texas to the northernmost islands of Canada. Australia covers almost the entire continental US. Brazil is larger than the US and covers all of Europe. The UK seems pretty big, but when you place India on top of it, you see how small it really is.
What is the kinkiest fetish you or people you know have? The most fucked up fetish I know of is an ex had a fetish fantasy of having all 4 limbs amputated, so she'd be basically fully dependent like a house pet who can never leave, and is fully at the mercy of the guy.
That fetish is actually a rare condition called body integrity identity disorder. This condition makes people have the desire to amputate 1 or more healthy limbs or to become disabled. An example of this condition is Chloe Jennings White, who is physically healthy but lives like a disabled person. She always uses a wheelchair even though she can walk, and has made several attempts to injure herself so that she can be paralyzed from the waist down. She even found a doctor overseas willing to paralyze her by severing nerves in her spine, but she can't afford the surgery. Another example of this condition is Jewel Shooping, who was born perfectly healthy but always dreamed of being blind. So she convinced a psychologist to pour drain cleaner into her eyes, and when they did, she became permanently blind. This man used his Tesla to save a man's life, and you won't believe what Elon Musk did when he heard his story. Manfred Kick was driving his Tesla when for some reason the guy in front of him started hitting his car against the guardrail. Obviously he got out of the way and switched lanes, but as he drove past the car, he looked at the driver and noticed that he was unconscious. So how do you stop a speeding car with an unconscious driver? Well, apparently you use your Tesla. He drove his car in front of the other one and slowed down until his car got hit from behind. Then he continued to slow down until both cars came to a complete stop. This caused over $10,000 in damages to his Tesla. And then he administered first aid until help came. And then when Elon Musk heard about this, he said that Tesla would fix his car 100% for free.
Apple announced on iOS 15 they will be able to scan every photo you have. Apple says they will be scanning for any images or videos that might have CP.
You heard correct. Apple is now going to be scanning through all the photos you have, but that's not even the worst part. Not only will Apple's new feature scan through your photos, it will even scan through your messages and your Siri conversations. And if Apple's AI robot detects possible CP or other content it deems dangerous or bad, it will be revealed to a real person for manual review. But the thing is, anyone who controls the list of possible images could use it to search for any picture on your device. And not to mention, it could just straight up get hacked, and hackers could have access to millions of people's photos, videos, and personal information.